Hey everybody, it's Robert coming to you with another adventure into history. Today I'm in Harris County, Georgia. I'm joined again by Mrs. Linda McCardle, and we are at the historic Pierce Chapel Cemetery here. Interesting note real quick, the old Pierce Chapel Church sits right across the road. It's in Muskogee County. This side is Harris County. And this originally started as the Kimbrough burying ground.
The Kimbrough burying ground. I was looking in the newspaper and found an obituary for Richard Dozier Jr. and said that he was buried in the Kimbrough burying grounds. Then I found another newspaper article that also mentioned the Kimbrough burying grounds. This land was owned by Thomas Kimbrough. Also, the land that the church sits on was owned by Thomas Kimbrough.
Well, we're going to find the Kimbrough graves first. This is an older section of the cemetery that we're headed to, with some amazing old fieldstone crypts or box tombs in it. And those are definitely some of the most amazing that I've seen. There's very similar ones in Shiloh, Georgia, with the kind of pointed top. Here is a Kimbrough. This is sacred to the memory of Amos A. Kimbrough, who was born October 8, 1838 and died May 23, 1855, aged, as I say, 16 years, 8 months and 15 days. His end was peace.
He was Thomas's grandson.
Here are more Kimbroughs. This is sacred to the memory of Mary A. Kimbrough, consort of H.C. Kimbrough, born May 3, 1818, died April 22, 1863. She has gone to reap the reward of her
Fervent piety
and benevolence. So this says, in memory of Thomas Kimbrough, born May 9th, 1788, and departed this life July 11th, 1847.
And this is my oldest ancestor buried here. He's my fourth great-grandfather.
A strong mind, regulated by the teachings of Christianity, made him eminently successful, securing a large fortune, the good opinion of his fellow man, the affections of his children, and of a wife who was identified. A wife was identified with him in all the fortunes of life, and who still survives to remember his many virtues. For 40 years he was a member of the Methodist Episcopal Church, in which he was long a leader and a steward. His end was peace.
Thomas Kimbrough was possibly the son of Lieutenant John Kimbrough, who was a Revolutionary War soldier. It is, the DAR says this, but I have never found any actual paper. I don't have a paper trail to him, but it is kind of common fact with the DAR. But he was the son of Lieutenant John Kimbrough. He was born in Putnam County. John had gotten land in Wilkes County, Greene County, but eventually moved to Putnam County. When he was born in Putnam County, then he married Sarah Stallings, and this is her grave. It is, no longer can you read any of it, but this is her grave. And Sarah Stallings was the daughter of Malachi Stallings, who was a Revolutionary War soldier, and the granddaughter of Jesse Stallings, who was also a Revolutionary War soldier who served with Elijah Clark, who was a very prominent Georgia Revolutionary War general. And they married in 1830, and they moved here, and many of their children are buried here. They had 7 children. When Thomas died, he had 63 enslaved people. He owned about 1,200 acres in Muskogee and Harris County, and a lot of his land was inherited by his children. When we find one of his daughters, I'll tell you the story about her and her husband, Benjamin Clark.
When did he donate the land for the church?
He didn't. He died in 1847. The church was not founded till 1855. But eventually this land became the church cemetery. Right. But it was originally the family burying ground.
And I think it's important for us to note too that there is a burial ground for enslaved people and also descendants in the woods.
Yes.
Over there, which is known as the Pierce Chapel African American
Cemetery.
And it had been very long neglected and forgotten in those woods over there.
Henry Kimbrough was their son, and he married Mary Ann Rosser, and he eventually moved to Hamilton. Even though he's buried here, he was a member of this church. He was a prominent Mason, and he became a judge in Harris County and served in the state legislature. And a very sad story about Henry, his granddaughters were 3 young granddaughters. In the tornado in 1875, I think you and Dan talked about Bonneville, how it was completely destroyed. Well, it also went through Harris County, Muscogee County, Talbot, and a little town called Mount Airy in Harris County. But 3 of his granddaughters died in this tornado. Fanny was the oldest. She was going to the Hamilton Female College. And then his other 2 granddaughters, Mary and Alice, died. And the sad thing to me was reading the newspaper accounts. It mentioned the names of the whites that were there, but 16 black family. I mean, there were 16 that died, and their families were not mentioned. It just said 16. Right. 16 were dead, but they lost much more in life than the white families. But their homes were just completely destroyed. It must have been so devastating. Well, this is Mary Ann Rosser, that was Henry's wife, but it would have been their grandchildren. Their daughter married a Hilliard Pitts. Sarah Stallings had a sister, Grace. She moved here with her husband, Bird Garrett. In reading about it, it said that they are buried in one of these older crypts, she and her husband, Bird Garrett. They're not related to the Garretts that are over in the Whitley Cemetery, but because they came from Greene County. I thought there's not many names on these older ones, so I really feel like this was because of this is some of the older graves of the Kimbroughs.
Yeah, and these would typically, what we would consider early settlement graves, anywhere from the 1820s. Generally, you don't see these past the 1860s. They are really amazing graves, and this was apparently a Scottish tradition, these cairns that were done over in Scotland, and it was something that was brought over here. It was very fascinating to see these like this. Usually we see the flat boxes, relatively common, not so much the tents.
And it's sad to know that there's no names on them, so we don't know who it was.
Who are we looking for next?
The next is the Clarks, and I think Benjamin W. Clark, I think he's buried back down here.
Okay. Sarah, daughter of Benjamin and Sarah A. Clark. Sacred to the memory of Benjamin W. Clark.
And he was born in Upson County. He married Mary Reese, not my Reese family, but he married a Mary Reese, and when she died, he married Virginia Clark, who was the daughter of Thomas and Sarah. When the church was built in 1855, he gave the land, but it was actually the land that had been willed to her by her father. Right. And so after he preached here. He was a very prominent preacher in this area, but he preached here.
This one is a marble grave that has eroded and sunk in the middle, and the rain has just really destroyed it. Something Pitts.
Okay, so this would have been, after he died, she married a Dr. William Pitts. Their daughter married Thomas Matthew Reese, my great-great-grandfather's brother. Jesse Stallings Kimbrough. This is their son. This is Thomas's son.
This is Jesse S. Kimbrough, born in Putnam County, Georgia, December 6th, 1816. After living an exemplary Christian life and fully setting his house in order, died in peace and resignation at his residence in Harris County, Georgia, October 26, 1851, aged 34 years, 10 months, and 20 days, leaving a devoted wife in sorrowful widowhood, 3 small children, orphans, and a large circle of relations and friends to mourn his early but peaceful death.
And this is Frances Watt. She was the daughter of Hugh Watt, who is a very prominent Muscogee and in Harris County. He was very wealthy. He's not buried here. He's buried at it was his family burying grounds, but it's now called Copperclad Farm. It's only about 10 graves there, but Hugh is buried there. But he is associated with the Reese family, the Kimbrough family, in the Ely family. So he was just very prominent, and he was, her father was guardian to so many children that passed away.
Right.
So, but his name pops up in all my research.
Yeah.
Her father was Hugh. This is William B. Kimbrough, who also died very early. He was also Thomas and Sally Stallings Kimbrough's son. He married Margaret Ann Nutt. And when he died, he also left 3 small children that they took care of. They're all of the children of Jesse Stallings Kimbrough and William B. Kimbrough are named in Thomas's will, and he left them rather well off when he died. But the good thing about my family is that they named their son Jesse Stallings Kimbrough, which was Sarah's grandfather. So when you're doing family research, that's always so good to see that. When you go, oh, that is a paper trail.
Right. Let's see, this tablet is to mark the last resting place of Lucy Ann, daughter of Jesse S. and Francis A. Kimbrough, who died May 16, 1850, aged 3 years and 6 months. This is in memory of Jesse F., youngest child of Jesse S. and Francis A. Kimbrough, born June 26, 1851, died December 15, 1874, aged 23 years, 5 months and 19 days, an affectionate son and brother, and a good citizen, an honest man, the noblest work of God. There's a lot of early deaths.
Yes, yes.
In this family. The infant child of T.H. and M.L. Kimbrough, born March 23, 1877, died March 29, 1877. In loving remembrance of Tommy Kimbrough, November 9, 1878 to February 1st, 1914.
This is Thomas Hugh Kimbrough. Thomas Hugh Kimbrough was the grandson of Sarah and Thomas Kimbrough. He was very prominent in Harris County history. In fact, his home, if you drive down Hamilton Road in Catawba, if you go past Preston Road where the post office is, there's an antique store, and that's his home.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he was very prominent politically, and he also got very involved in the Grange movement, the farmers movement, but he was fairly wealthy. And he was a Mason. And this is his wife, Lucinda Jenkins. When the church was 70 years old, he was one of the people that, when they did their history, he talked about, how it had affected his life, and so he was a very prominent member here.
This is another one that's fading fast. If it's not, I think it is pretty much unreadable now. In memory of, I think this is a Kimbrough.
It's a Kimbrough.
But that marble insert into this is just eroded away.
Someone in 1927, someone visited the cemetery and they had an old envelope and they wrote some of these that they said that they were fading in so almost 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And I found it on Ancestry, and that they had written about Sarah, and there was I could not decipher that, but they had come here and that her grave had writing on it, her tombstone.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't read it, but it did. They did say that's how I knew that was hers, because they had come here in 1927. So
I always think it's fascinating because as we in our lifetimes look at history, but back then, 100 years ago, they were documenting that history.
they were documenting, yes.
In memory of David T. Kimbrough, who was born in Putnam County, January 24th, 1833, and departed this life September 2nd, 1853.
This is another son of Thomas, and they had many children that died not as infants, but as like young adults. They had married and
Right.
passed away very early, leaving him to care for a lot of grandchildren.
I see we have a child there, and there in the 2 fieldstone tombs, 2 maybe adults or young adults in the middle. But I think it's interesting, and we've got this Kimbrough line from, even though that plot has a wall on it now, but we've got just this straight line. So, no doubt that these were some of the, Kimbro family in there. Maybe, I wonder, and I don't mean to get off track,
Oh, it's fine.
sacred to the memory of Henry B. Garrett, who died March 7th, 1853.
Oh, okay, so this is Bird Garrett. This is, I didn't remember that it was a picture of that, but this would have been her sister's, Sally, and her husband. Her sister Martha and her husband, Bird Garrett, who came from Putnam County. And I'm thinking, I could not find where he had any land, so I'm thinking they probably moved onto the plantation, worked in the plantation, and then were buried here. So these graves predate, not hers, but his predates the formation of the church.
Right. I was just wondering, since it's in this kind of row here, where we have the Kimbrough row there, if maybe other Garrett members or something like that could be.
I did not see where any other Garretts came, but it did not mention that they had any children. I could not find where they had any children.
Gotcha.
But it could have been. I don't.
Right. It'd be interesting to know who's all in the unmarked graves.
It would be.
And how early they were, if they...
Yes, because they moved into Columbus in the 1830s.
Yeah.
So this is probably 20 years of graves predating the formation of the church and the cemetery here.
Right. I always wish we'd find an engraving in the rock or something to let us know. This was another tinted one like that one. And that one was actually originally covered in plaster. At least, there could have been, I bet there were names right here in this plaster. There, and you can see where there used to be plaster here. I bet there was a name on there, because that looks like really the only place where it was plastered. And back here we have John S. Whitney.
Whitney. I think
Is it? Because it looks like they engraved it wrong and changed it or something. W-H-I-T, but then it looks like a...
They tried to make an L out of it?
Yeah.
Whitley.
Because it looks like maybe it was originally an N, and then they tried to change it into an L. Who was born in Lincoln County, Kentucky, February 11th, 1812, and departed this life in Columbus, May 22nd, 18... Is that 58 or 38?
38, 1838.
So that's an early one. We've got one here that's... looks like an earlier style of headstone. We'll see just a minute though if that's right. In memory of William Boyd, born October 7th, 1787, died December 2nd, 1844. Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints.
William Boyd, his father was Robert Boyd, who was a Revolutionary soldier from Wilkes County, and he married Sarah Fleming. So I'm not sure if one of these graves would have been hers. Samuel Hines was one of the founders of Pierce Chapel Methodist Church.
In memory of Samuel Hines, born 1812, died July 22nd, 1864. Rest in peace, for the Lord cares for thee.
And I believe, did you say 1854, 1864?
1864.
64. He was one of the founding members. He married Frances Ann Watt Kimbrough, who was the daughter of Jesse, who was the son of Thomas. And I think these are two of their young children.
It's Mildred Clayton, child of C.W. and M.A. Hines, born December 13th, 1877, died August 20th, 1878. An infant son of C.W. and M.A. Hines, born January 28th, 1882, died May 5th, 1882. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. So probably grandchildren.
Grandchildren.
Yeah.
But, the interesting, when you talk about all the Masons, originally the Masonic Lodge sat near the church.
Oh, wow.
Because Benjamin Clark gave the land for that too. But it ended up, I think, right as you turn on the 315, that corner.
That's right.
That's after the Civil War. I think maybe it was moved over there, because my Ely family, my Reese family, the Kimbroughs, they were all members of that Masonic Lodge. But he was one of the original founding members. He's on the deed as a trustee, Samuel Hines. And then this is another part of the Clark family.
Hilda A. Clark, born September 21st, 1903, died January 31st, 1915. Marshall Clark, 1874 to 1944. Elizabeth Bella, wife of Marshall Clark, 1881 to 1958. And then James Spear Clark and his obelisk here. And it says he was born in Talbot County, Georgia, December 21st, 1840, and died in Catala, Georgia, December 23rd, 1900. And over here is Rebecca A. Kimbrough, wife of James S. Clark, born March 21st, 1847, died September 16th.
And her father was Henry Chambers Clark. Henry Chambers Kimbrough.
Why should we weep when the loved ones rest in the bosom of Jesus supreme, in the mansions of glory prepared for the blessed, for death is no more than a dream. Interesting. And of course, we've been to Talbot County plenty of times with Adventures into History. Nice iron gate.
It is a pretty gate.
And it was kind of walled up, and just in this plot here. So here are more Clarks.
Okay, this is Benjamin Arnold Clark. This is Benjamin, the man that gave the land. This is his son. He also married a Kimbrough.
He was born July 17th, 1838, and died November 10th, 1901. In life beloved, in death lamented, gone to mansions of rest. This would have had an obelisk on it. You can actually still see the mortar for it, but the obelisk itself is missing.
He married Virginia Kimbrough, whose father was Jesse Stallings Kimbrough.
And I think that is her here.
Yes.
Sacred to the memory of Virginia, wife of B.A. Clark. Born July 8th, 1843, died August 20th, 1868.
So there's an S, so probably that was a
Yeah.
Jesse Stallings and
F. Kimbrough.
Frances Watt Kimbrough. She's Hugh's daughter. It gets very confusing
Yeah.
trying to keep all these, because they cousins marry cousins, and son of B.A. This is one of their children that died. Jesse. He was
April 27th, 1861 to April 20th, 1864.
So he was only 3.
Jesse B.
But he was their son.
It's another one of those boxes that has the marble insert in it.
Whenever we come into the Reese.
This one's still legible for now. Mrs. The name is actually gone. Mrs. I think Mary, wife of Thomas Rees.
Thomas Reese, yes.
And daughter of, and then damage, born January 30th, 1830-something, died December 7th, could be 27th, 17th, 1864. Then another one, but the marble is destroyed on this one.
This is my second great-grandfather, Thomas Clopton Reese. He's the son of James and Rebecca Matthews Smith Reese. He was born in 1829. Most of the Reese children of James Reese were born in Jasper County. He was, I'll tell you his story in a minute, but he was a Methodist minister, so they traveled, they moved around a good bit. He was a Baptist minister, excuse me, not a Methodist. But this is his second wife, Martha Olivia Reese, Archibald Malachi Kimbrough's daughter, who is my third great-grandfather. She is my second great-grandmother, but she's his second wife. So he was born in 1829. He served in John Pemberton's cavalry unit. He was a judge here in this is, at one time was called the Nances District. I think later Nankipu. But this area, the Nances District, and each of the little communities in the counties had their own little court system. So he served as judge here for many years. He tried to get into politics. He ran for everything. All my relatives loved politics, but they never won anything. But he was a judge here and very well respected in the community. But this is his second wife, Martha Olivia. They had 11 children, tons of children. The Reeses in Columbus, if there's a Reese, I'm related to them. Right. Because James Reese had many sons as well, and they all lived in this area.
I have two questions for you. There's a discrepancy on his death dates on these two markers. The polished granite
He died in 1893. I know he died in 1893. I have his obituary from the paper.
Gotcha.
I don't...
Yeah, the military marker says he died July
1901,
7th.
but Martha died in 1902. So I'm not sure where they got the 1901. Yeah. But he did die in 1893. Archibald Tullian Reese, which is my second great-grandfather, married into the Smith family. And a lot of these newer tombs, the Smith family in the 60s started redoing them because they were deteriorating, and so this is not his, probably his looked like that originally, but they started trying to repair these graves because at one time this cemetery was in very bad disrepair. So,
what's the different spelling too? I see he's R-E-E-S.
We don't know. The R-E-E-S, until my second great-grandfather, the Reeses were spelled R-E-E-S. But for some reason, my great-grandfather started putting an E at the end of his name. So we have R-E-E-S relatives and R-E-E-S-E relatives. So we're not nobody. And I'm so dumb, I could have asked when I was in my 20s because I started doing this research, but I didn't think about it then. You know, you think about it in your 70s.
That must be his first wife, I think, because it said wife of Thomas Rees.
Okay, so this is Martha Minerva Reese. They were, Martha Olivia and Martha Minerva were first cousins. Martha Minerva was the daughter of William B. Kimbrough, the oldest son of Thomas. And she was William B.'s daughter. Hers was Archibald Malachi's. But they were first cousins. And when Martha Minerva died, he was left with 4 young children. So he married her very quickly. He married Martha Olivia. Reverend James Reese, he was a Baptist minister. He was born in South Carolina, and his death dates are wrong. He actually died in 1890, not 1891. And that's what happens when families go back and they didn't have a lot of the information that I have then, but he died in 1890. This is his wife, Rebecca Matthews Smith, and she's very interesting. She's buried in 2 places. That's another thing when the family, they didn't realize this when they redid the graves. I found it quite by accident. My cousin and I went to Barnesville to a sacred harp singing because their son, Henry Smith Reese, was a very big deal in sacred harp music after the Civil War till he passed away in the 1920s. And I wanted to go to Barnesville to a sacred harp singing. So my cousin and I went, and on the way back we said, well, let's go by and see his grave, because Henry Smith Reese is buried in Turin, Georgia, which is outside of Noonan near Sharpsburg. And as we're looking at the graves, we find Rebecca Matthews Smith, wife of James Reese, buried there. So I thought, how in the world? They're buried in 2 places. But what happened was when James and Rebecca got older, they lived for 6 months with my second great-grandfather, Thomas Clopton Reese. And the reason I know this is that every time they left to go to Turin, to Henry's house, it was in the paper. Reverend James and Mrs. Reese are headed to Turin to live with Henry. So when they would come back, they would mention it. Right. So while they were there, she passed away. So he comes back. And so my Smith cousins did not realize that. They didn't realize that. So she's buried. It was very interesting to look at them and go, oh my gosh, our third great-grandmother is buried in 2 places.
Yeah.
Rebecca Matthew Smith is the daughter of Henry Smith, who was a Revolutionary War soldier. He died in Pike County, but they tried to prove he was a soldier. And he died in 1818. So in 1816, the oldest son, Aaron, tried proving that he was a soldier because their mother, Sally Matthews, whose father was also a Revolutionary War soldier, needed the money. She died. They keep trying. This went on for 40 years. And finally, after 40 years, someone took the family Bible, the Smith family Bible, ripped out the pages. They're in the Spalding County Courthouse that I saw.
Yeah.
And to prove that he was a Revolutionary War soldier. Wow. So her family was quite interesting. They were in the Pike County area, in the Zebulon area. Yeah. So they had she had a lot of brothers and sisters. So this is my third great-grandparents right here.
I wonder what has caused the deterioration of some of these stones. I wonder if they were, if someone sprayed like muriatic acid on them or something at one time, because I have never seen
that
marble do. I mean, I've seen some worn marble, but the amount of worn marble.
I guess it had a little tablet on top of it. Maybe go back to the shade for just a little while.
Yeah, maybe, well, not a whole lot of it.